I'm Greg Johnston, CEO of Carl Data Solutions, an industrial Internet of Things company that provides big data solutions for monitoring critical infrastructure. Carl Data offers machine learning and predictive analytics features through our cloud-based applications to deliver key asset-saving operational insights from massive amounts of data. Carl Data trades on the CSE, symbol CRL, and the Pink, symbol CDTAF. For more details on Carl Data, please visit carlsolutions.com.
Welcome to the Goddard Report. Comments made on the Goddard Report and TalkDigitalNetwork.com are an expression of opinion only. Here is Jim Goddard.
My guest is Jordan Bateman, Communications Director for the Independent Contractors and Business Association. Welcome back to the show, Jordan.
Thanks for having me, Jim.
The BC government changing ICBC's funding methods and who's covered and how much they're going to pay. What's that going to do to businesses in BC?
Well, this is a very interesting thing. So, first of all, we need to get clear. There's a two-part announcement here, and David Eby tried to make a lot of political hay by claiming that a lot of people will be paying less in car insurance. The truth is that was just political spin. Vaughn Palmer, Mike Smith, those guys have done a lot of deep dives into this. And once the rate increases kick in next year, everybody, whether you're a perfect driver or not, will be paying a whole lot more for ICBC. So you just got to debunk that myth, first of all. Where it's interesting or where it's concerning for the independent contractors is some of the rules as far as how business vehicles will be taxed or insured. So essentially, for fleets of more than 5 vehicles, everything sort of stays the same, or at the very least, they haven't really gotten around to changing that yet. It's that kind of independent contractor, that small business, the plumber with 2 trucks or the welding company with 3 trucks. They're the ones who are going to be dinged. And what's going to happen is every person who could possibly drive that work truck will have to be declared upfront with ICBC and will have to be insured. Your driving record will factor into the insurance. The problem with that is construction really, it's a young man's business. Lots of young men, there are, growing percentages of women who work in construction. There are, certainly people of all ages working in construction, but predominantly it's younger men. And they will be, they'll be insured at a much higher rate than they were before because the statistics say young men are some of the more dangerous drivers. And, you think of, road racing and things like that, generally it's young men involved. So whether they've been a perfect driver or not all 5 or 6 or 10 years of their driving careers, until they get past that, until they start to collect a bigger discount for being a safe driver, you're going to end up paying more. This is going to be really bad news for companies because, that 26-year-old or 24-year-old young guy that you have, driving your welding truck, all of a sudden just became more expensive to insure. That means more cost of business, and that, of course, will translate into higher costs for the customer on the other end.
Now, are corporate vehicles known for causing a lot of accidents?
No, I don't think so.
I don't think so either.
The only, they get taxed at a higher rate because, of course, they're considered business vehicles. So often, there's tools and things inside. So, perhaps ICBC would be on the hook to replace those if there was an accident. But where the problem is, this is kind of the second piece of the rate changes. The further you drive to quote unquote work, the more costly it's going to be. So, contracting vehicles are on the road all the time. They don't have an option. If your contracting crew lives in Surrey and the work's in North Vancouver or Bowen Island or in Delta, that's a long way to drive for all those different things. You can't take a SkyTrain, you can't lug your tools onto a SkyTrain or onto a bus, so you have to have these work trucks. And anyone who's ever come in, next time you're on the highway, just kind of open your eyes and look around, and you'll be shocked to see just how many contractor vehicles there are out on the road every day. And, these are the people who are building and maintaining our facilities, our infrastructure, our homes and all of that important stuff. Well,
I mean, I've just moved into a new home and have had to use plumbers and electricians, and they show up in their truck, and most of them have a minimum charge of about $180 to show up. What kind of a bill could I expect if this was a year or two from now?
Well, that's a good question. So we're still trying to factor that in, and frankly, ICBC has not given, and DV have not given very much of an indication as to what the costs will be. So on top of the way the rate structure is changing, there's also what most people think will be, 20 or 25% rate increases over 3 years. So this is going to be a double whammy for businesses at a time where, businesses now are going to be on the hook for employer health tax, and a number of other taxes layered on by the NDP carbon tax increases, TransLink gas tax increase. So yeah, for those companies who rely on vehicles to move things around, which I'm going to let you know a secret, is almost every company, it's going to get a lot more expensive. And again, it's just going to continue to drive up our cost of living here in BC.
The Premier says, the transit tax link is only 1 cent a liter. Those big trucks suck up a lot of liters of gas every day, don't they? Yeah, well, it's 1.5 cents per liter for TransLink. Well, there you go. Plus another 1.1 for carbon. So it's actually 2.6 cents, and, you pay GST actually on that too. So, it's easy for John Horgan to say with his private driver, and, he gets taken down to his Premier's office, which probably isn't too far from his home in Souk, and, it's all taken care of for him. So, when's the last time he actually had to fill up a truck? But, for the rest of us unwashed masses, this is going to be very expensive. And if you're a contractor and you have a big diesel vehicle and you're, trucking heavy equipment around the city, yeah, it's going to be pricey. I would also point out it's going to be more expensive for municipalities too. Big rate increases. Every municipality has a large fleet. While ICBC may not affect them, depending on how the fleet changes come down, certainly the gas tax increase will affect them. And that, of course, means, more money for the municipalities will claim they need, and that will probably mean higher property taxes as well. We'll have more with Jordan Bateman right after this.
Bateman Resources Limited is a gold exploration company with significant projects in British Columbia, Saskatchewan, and the Yukon. Trading on the TSX Venture Exchange, symbol ABN, and the pink symbol ABN-AF. Surrounded by world-class gold deposits and mines, Bateman's 23,000 hectares Forest Kerr Gold Project is located in the heart of the Golden Triangle in northwestern BC. For more information, visit us at batemanresources.com.
Bateman Ventures Corp. is a potash exploration company focused on the Korat Basin in Thailand, the world's largest undeveloped potash resource. Bateman's management has extensive potash exploration and development experience in Thailand. Bateman will have marketing advantage compared to Western producers. Drill program commences this spring. Bateman trades on the TSX Venture, symbol BCV, and on Frankfurt, symbol V8V2. Visit our website, batemanventures.com.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Jordan Bateman. Jordan, with the forest fire season in BC again quite severe, what's the impact on small businesses? And if a small business gets burnt out, do they get compensated by the government?
It depends on the situation. Last year, we did find that many small businesses who struggled were eligible for help from either charity or from government. In fact, it was really a tribute to the resiliency of folks in the interior. It was almost hard sometimes to get companies to apply for that financial help. It was there, but I have talked to MLAs who said, it took a lot of convincing to get some of these people to apply because they all felt like someone else may need it more. And I think it's a sign of kind of the neighborliness that is there in the interior, that people didn't want to claim this money in case, Fred down the street needed it more. The truth is, though, businesses, this is going to have a huge impact on some businesses. It won't be on all businesses, but certain businesses are going to feel the pinch. And certainly, if you lose any property or equipment because of fire, you should get in there and try to get as much help as you can, because once the period closes for getting money out of government, it's not going to open up again.
Also, were they helped right away when they asked for the help? Because we always hear after a fire, a year later, people still haven't received the government's promised compensation.
I think it was actually fairly quickly. It took a few weeks to get the program set up, but seemed like it was running fine. Again, talking to the MLAs there, it sounded like they were the people who may have been most delayed were the ones who, again, were being too neighborly and not trying to claim it for themselves. So, the system seemed to work. Unfortunately, it's one of these things where I think government's getting better at delivering the service just out of pure practice. It's concerning. The longer-term concern, though, of course, is what does this do for tourism, for example. So tourism in the Okanagan, anecdotally, is already down. A lot of that is blamed on BC's ongoing ridiculous hostilities against Alberta. Many Okanagan tourists come from Alberta. That seems to be drying up, which is a big concern. But, long term, the narrative around forest fires and, the smoggy skies and taking away some of those, frankly, God-given, beautiful, supernatural BC branded things that, we just, automatically assume everyone wants to see. That's going to be problematic for our tourism portfolio going forward. So at some point we should probably, be talking about, tourism numbers in BC, what the impact of this stuff is, and how we alleviate that.
Should governments be doing more to hire small businesses to make bigger fire breaks around communities so we don't have to evacuate so many every summer?
Yeah, I mean, some of it's a bit of a needle in a haystack, right? Like, BC is massive, so it's hard to know year to year what community will be threatened. So, I mean, I guess you could hire them, but, by the time the fire actually starts, it's almost too late to get those breaks in place. And certainly, if a fire break is going to be helpful while a fire is burning, generally they get the funding and they find a way to build it. But to do it beforehand, probably, still too difficult given just the size of BC and even though these fires sound massive, in the overall context of a giant province, they're a very, very tiny percentage.
Well, I almost think of it, though, as, if you do a town or two a year or something, it improves the overall situation. But even with rapid transit, why do you have to build giant lines all at once? What if you just had a project, if you extended it 1 or 2 stations a year? If we would have done that, I mean, right now we'd be connected to Abbotsford.
Yeah, well, absolutely. I mean, nothing's been built south of the Fraser. Sure, there's nothing preventing it. I think government would argue that, the bigger the project, the more money you save, the economies of scale. Although, one could argue that from a debt servicing perspective, just having an envelope of money refreshed by taxes every year, going towards, extending a SkyTrain line rather than trying to bite off a giant, $2 or $3 billion bite in 1 year, that may actually make more sense.
I'll have more with Jordan Bateman when we come back.
I'm Kelly Jennings, CEO of PowerBand Solutions. PowerBand is a cloud-based provider of auction, inventory, and finance solutions that make buying, selling, and financing vehicles more efficient. PowerBand Solutions trades on the TSX Venture Exchange symbol PBX and on the OTCQB symbol PWWPF and on Frankfurt symbol 1ZV. For more information, please visit us at powerbandsolutions.com.
Don't miss out. Stay informed. Receive the HowStreet.com weekly recap with thought-provoking podcasts, radio, and articles delivered to your inbox. Sign up for the HowStreet.com weekly recap on our homepage at HowStreet.com.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Jordan Bateman. Jordan, with steel tariffs slapped on Canada, what's the big concern here for construction? Because really, you can't build anything big without steel.
Well, it should be a huge concern on the West Coast. So in all of Western Canada, there's a plant in Edmonton that can do steel rebar or produce steel for rebar, but it can only do probably about 25 or 30% of what just the Lower Mainland needs in a year, let alone the rest of British Columbia, Alberta, Saskatchewan, Manitoba. So we do not have the kind of steel production in Western Canada that we need to survive this. What's happened now, and because of that, something like 95% of steel in British Columbia is produced by the United States, which of course now has the tariffs on it, so we can't get it as cheaply from them. It's from Turkey, which is undergoing a little bit of political revolution. That's not great, and from countries in Asia. The problem we have is to protect the East Coast steel mills, Trudeau is now considering, and I think he's on day 2 of his 14-day consultation period. He's now considering more tariffs on the Asian and Turkey, trying to stop them from taking steel that they used to send to the United States and just flooding the Canadian market with it. I would say this: it is 4 times more expensive to ship steel from Hamilton, from Eastern Canada to the West Coast than it is to bring it in by ship from Turkey or Asia. So if he puts huge tariffs on Turkish and Asian steel, we're going to end up paying more for steel. There'll be a supply shortage, and the costs will be driven way up. And when you think about the Patello Bridge, you think about Surrey Light Rail, you think about the Broadway subway line, you think about Site C, Kinder Morgan. Oh gosh, you think about the hospitals and schools and roads. All these things, anything that has concrete in it also requires steel rebar to reinforce it. And all of those things will become more expensive. One rebar expert I talked to says, prices could jump as much as 40% for steel, which would be just absolutely crushing for the building program that both governments and private companies are going through.
Do you think this has been thought out in Ottawa, and would they pay attention to people from BC, and have you let Ottawa know that?
We have let Ottawa know, and certainly the Steel Coalition has let Ottawa know. West Coast steel companies have let Ottawa know, but I'll remind you that our Premier decided to essentially go to war with the Prime Minister of Canada over Trans Mountain. His obstinate and frankly, we believe, unlawful opposition to Kinder Morgan thus forced the Prime Minister to do something politically he didn't want to do, which is take over the project completely. I don't think Justin Trudeau is in any mood to do any favors for John Horgan. And I think if Horgan's Patello Bridge and other fancy projects go over budget, I don't think Justin Trudeau is going to shed a single tear, because he'll believe that Horgan will pay the political price for that.
Of course, it's not Horgan who pays the price of anything. It's you and me, the taxpayer.
No, exactly. But, you're not going to get much sympathy from most Albertans, for example, for our plight here. They're going to say, look, you cost us a whole lot more money, or took money out of our pockets. Now it's turnaround is fair play. And this is the problem that happens when you've got people acting like babies in position of leadership, and instead of being reasonable partners in confederation, reasonable partners in building a nation, but instead putting their ideology and frankly naked political power grab, trying to keep the Green Party in place so that you can stay premier, you end up with these kind of situations.
Well, Jordan, you're just going to have to find a way to get hemp to replace steel.
Believe me, I'm sure someone's working on that. If only we could have. I'm a little concerned with this idea that marijuana is going to be some magical panacea for all of our economic woes. So that's a whole other discussion for another day.
Jordan, thank you so much for chatting with us.
Thanks for having me.
My guest has been Jordan Bateman, Communications Director for the Independent Contractors and Business Association. His website, icba.ca. If you have any questions for the show or our guests, you can send them to info@howstreet.com. I'm Jim Goddard. Thanks for listening.
Comments made on the Goddard Report and TalkDigitalNetwork.com are an expression of opinion only. The Goddard Report is available online and mobile at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. The Goddard Report is a production of How Street Media Incorporated.